Beitza?
Yeah, Beitza Aleph.
Beitza, Aleph, Vav. Okay. Beit Shammai says one does not take challah or dues to the Kohen on Yom Tov, whether they were set apart on the day before or were set apart on that day. Beis Hillel permits. Beis Shammai gave a gezerah sheva, challah and dues are gifts to the Kohen, and truma is a gift to the Kohen. Just as one does not take the truma, so does one not take the dues. Beis Hillel said to them, "No, if you refer to truma, which may not be set apart, will you say the same for dues that one has allowed to set apart?" By the way, I have this. There's a class that I can't go to because I'm not, but someone makes the connection for me. It's SCP, I think it is. They have this thing. So
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was a difference between taking challah in Eretz Yisrael and challah in Kutzel Oretz.
Yes, one is Doraisa and one is Drabanan.
Yeah, but I didn't. Aside from that, there was something else about that. Taking it, I have to look at it, but I didn't realize it when I looked through it quickly. Okay, Beis Shammai said spices are ground with a wooden pestle and in a jar and a wooden stir. But Beis Hillel says spices are ground as usual with a stone pestle and salt with a wooden pestle. One who picks out pulse on Yom Tov, Beis Shammai says he picks out the edible parts and eats. But Rabbi Hillel says he picks them as usual into his lap, put into a basket or a dish, but not on a board or a sifter or a sieve. Um, Gamil says he may rinse and skim. Okay.
Okay. Beis Shammai Omrim Ein Mishalchin Biyom Tov Ele Manos. So Beis Shammai say if you're going to give somebody a gift on Yom Tov, like let's say you get invited out for lunch, and then
Right.
you have to give ready prepared food, says Beis Shammai. Bei Hillel אומרים משלחין בהמה חיה ועוף בין חיים בין שחוטין. You don't have to. You can give somebody an animal and that's still alive and say, here you go, you can check this today. I wonder how that would go down today if you like
Not too well.
arrived at somebody's house and said, here's a pigeon.
Right. Not
Uh,
too well.
mm.
Okay.
Mashalchin yenos shmanim uslasos v'kidnios. You can give wine, you can give oils, you can give flour and kidneys. But aval lo tavua, but you cannot give him but you cannot bring a gift um, of whole grain because whole grain still needs to be ground,
Yeah,
and
right.
and tahina is where we draw the line. Basically, I think the line is that all malachas from lash and onwards are okay. So you
What's
can
lush?
lush is kneading, where
Kneading.
you add the water to the flour and mix it
Yeah,
into a
yeah,
paste. So you can give
yeah.
him the flour, but you can't give him the grains because then he's got to grind.
Right, right. Okay.
Okay. Rabbi Shimon matir b'tvua, and Rabbi Shimon even says that he says that this is permitted. Why? Because he's saying you could make another pot. You could basically boil the things whole and eat them like that, says Rabbi Shimon. But Rambam Paskins halacha not like Rabbi Shimon. Meshalchin kelim. Bain Tefurin, Bain She'elan Tefurin. Kalim over here is talking about clothing. So you can give somebody a gift of clothing on Yom Tov, and it doesn't matter whether it's sewn or not, whether it's a finished garment or not, because a person can still wear it even if it's not a finished garment. V'afal pi sheyesh behem kilayim. This is it's a huge chiddush over here that
Right.
if there's kilayim in the clothing, you'd think that you can't use that. No, but if it's something that he could use to sit on without exposing his skin to it, then it would also be acceptable. It could be used. V'hein letzorech hamoed, as long as it's for the needs of the festival itself. Aval lo sandal hamisumar, but you cannot use a nailed shoe below min al she'eno tafor, and not a shoe that hasn't yet been sewn properly, because well the story with the nailed sandal, that's from Gezerah because of that Maaseh Shehaya. There was an incident once when the people were hiding from the non-Jews, and they were wearing hobnailed boots, and they got frightened. They thought that they were upon them, and they wound up trampling each other with these boots. And even though this has got nothing to do with Yom Tov, they made an Isra on it on Yom Tov because the Maaseh itself happened on Yom Tov.
Okay.
Um, okay, and the shoe that hasn't yet been sewn because that's not yet wearable.
Right. Right. Right.
And the sewing is a malacha even on Yom Tov. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Af lo min al lavan mipnei shetzarich uman, and also a an undyed shoe. So normally we dye the shoe the leather into the color that you wanted it. So if it hasn't yet been dyed,
Shaw,
yes.
I
You lost me for a second. Um, okay, what's happening? Have you got me? Can you hear me? So sorry about that.
right.
So about the white shoe is it hasn't yet been dyed. And you can't dye it on Yom Tov, and people wouldn't wear it. So therefore, it needs a craftsman to do it properly. So you cannot give that as a gift on Yom Tov. So your general rule now, זה הכלל. כל שעושים בו ביום טוב משלחין. So anything that a person could benefit from on Yom Tov, a person can give that as a gift, and that is your final rule. And it's like Beis Hillel, not like Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai say you'd have to give a ready portion, whereas Beis Hillel say even if you need to shecht it, it's still fine.
Is there a
Okay.
thing about wearing? Is there a thing about wearing white shoes on Yom Tov or Shabbat?
No, the white shoes mean that they're undyed. They haven't yet
Oh,
been. So in other words, it's not a finished product yet.
okay.
So technically, you could wear it still.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I
Okay.
think that's the basis for the machlokes with Rabbi Yehuda. He says you cannot give a white shoe, but obviously the Tanna Kamma says the white shoe is fine.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Anyway, Perek Beis Yom Tov shechal lios erev Shabbos. Okay, what happens when Yom Tov falls on Friday? Lo yivashel adam betchila mi Yom Tov Shabbos. You're not allowed to start preparing on Yom Tov for Shabbos. Right? You can't do melacha on Yom Tov, that is. So if you're
Right.
cooking, you say, "Oh, yeah, let me make the cholent now for Shabbos." Can't do that. Okay, that's melacha on Yom Tov. Aval, this Mishnah now will teach us the din of Erev Tavshilin. Okay, aval mevashel hu liyom tov. He can cook for Yom Tov, and if he has excess for what he's cooked on Yom Tov, okay, hotzi Shabbos, he's allowed to use that on Shabbos. That's fine. But also tavshil may erev Yom Tov. So already on Thursday, he should have made an extra tavshil an extra tavshil for Shabbos. V'somech alav l'Shabbos. And since he's already started preparing for Shabbos on erev Yom Tov, he can carry on preparing for Shabbos on the Yom Tov itself. Beis Shammai omrim shnei tavshilin, uBeis Hillel omrim tavshil echad. So Beis Hillel require you to have made two tavshilin for erev tavshilin, and Beis Hillel say one is sufficient. V'shavin b'dagu beitza she'alav shehen shnei tavshilin. That even Beis Shammai would agree that if you have fish with an egg on top, that's considered two dishes, as far as erev tavshilin is concerned. Achalo or she'avad. Now, what happens if on Friday you went and ate the Erev Tavshilin before Shabbos was in? Lo yivashel alav b'tchila. So now you're not allowed to now
Right.
you've ruined your Erev Tavshilin and you can't rely on it anymore. V'im she'ir mimenu kol shehu. But if there's anything left over, somech alav l'Shabbos, then that's good enough to remain b'diavad as your Erev Tavshilin.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Sukkah.
Sukkah, Daled base. How is the lulav 7? If the first day of the festival fell on Shabbos, the lulav was 7. Any of the remaining days, 6. Um, how is the Arava 7? If the seventh day of the Arava fell on Shabbos, the Arava is 7. If any of the remaining days, 6. How is the mitzvah of lulav? If the first day of the festival fell on Shabbos, they would bring the lulav to the Temple Mount, and the chazim receive them and place them in order on the top of the portico, and the elders would leave them in the office. And they teach them to say, "My lulav is given as a gift to the person into whose hand it may fall." On the next day, they would rise early and come in, and the attendants would throw them before them, and they would snatch and beat one another. And when the Beis Din saw this was becoming dangerous, they ordained that everyone should perform the lulav ritual at home. I can see that happening.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, that and the guy who knocked they have the other guy knocked him over on the steps, the Cohens going up
No,
to
they're amazing social commentary.
okay. We have Yoma and we have
Hold on,
Beitza.
we need to do one more. We need to do hay.
I thought we did three.
Dalit hay we need here.
Oh, hey, okay, I thought we did. How is the mitzvah of the Rabbah? There was a location below Yerushalayim called Motza. They would descend to it and gather from there large yellow willow branches and set them up at the sides of the altar, with their tops bending over the top of the altar. That would sound the Tekiah, Trua, and Tekiah. Each day they made one circle around the altar, and they would say, "Please, O Lord, save us now. Please, O Lord, make us prosper."
Carry on.
Um, Yeah, Yehuda says, you have a save now, and on that day they would circle the altar 7 times. When they would depart, what would they say? This beauty is yours, O altar. This beauty is yours, O altar. Rabbi Elias says, to God and to you, O altar. To God and to you, O altar. Okay. And we move on to Yom. And we have Beis
Yeah.
Aleph. At first, whoever wanted to remove the ashes from the altar did so. In case there were many, they ran and descended the ramp, and whoever preceded his colleague into the 4 cubits won. If two of them were even, the administrator would say to them, put out a finger. What did they put out? 1 or 2 fingers, but they did not put out a thumb in the temple. It once happened that two were even as they ran and descended the ramp, and one of them pushed his colleague, fell, and his leg was broken. That's what I said.
Yeah.
Once the court realized that there was a danger, they instituted they not remove the ashes from the altar except by lot. There were 4 lots there. This is the first lot. The second lot was to determine who slaughters, who throws the blood, who clears the ashes from the inner altar, who clears the ashes from the menorah, and who brings the limbs of the daily offerings to the ramp. The head and the hind leg, the 2 forelegs, the tail and the hind leg, the breast and the neck, the 2 sides and the intestines, the fine flour, the kavita meal offering, and the wine. 13 Kohanim won it. As Azai and Rebbe Kiva's presence quoted Rebbe Shua, it was offered in the same way as he walked.
Okay.
And we have Shabbos. Shabbos, we have Yud Tes Vav. These are the shreds that validate the circumcision. Flesh that covers the larger part of the corona, and he may not eat of truma. If he was fleshy, he must rectify it for appearance sake. If he was circumcised but did not explode the circumcision, it is as if he did not circumcise. Reb Elliot says we may suspend the strainer on Yom Tov and we may pour into a suspended one on the Sabbath, but the sages say we may not suspend the strainer on Yom Tov, no, when we pour into a suspended one on the Sabbath, but we may pour into a suspended one on Yom Tov. We may pour water over wine dregs so that they become clear, and we may filter wine through cloths or through a basket made of palm twigs, and we may put an egg into a mustard stranger. We may make a honeyed wine on the Sabbath. Rabbi Yehuda says on the Sabbath it may be made in a cup. On Yom Tov it may be made in a bottle, and on Kol Hamoed in a cask. Reb Tzadok says everything depends on the number of the guests.
Okay.
And we are here we go. Peah. Aleph base. No, yeah, Aleph base. One should not give payah on less than 60, and even though they said payah has no measure, everything depends on the size of the field, the number of the poor, and according to the extent of the crop. One gives payah from the beginning of the field and from its middle. Reb Shimon says, provided it gives it at the end of the measure. Reb Yehuda says, if he left one stalk, he joins it to its payah, and if not, what is left counts only as ownerless property. They say the general rule regarding payah: whatever is food and whatever is guarded and grows out of the ground and is gathered at the same time and is brought in for storage to payah is liable to payah, and grain and pulse are his general rule. And midos. Okay, Gimel Aleph. The altar was 32 amas by 32 amas. It descended 1 amma and went inward 1 amma. This tier was the height base. It is found to be 30 by 30 amas. It extended 5 amas and went inward toward 1 amma. This tier was a ledge. It is found to be 28 by 28 amas. This base is for the horns, measured an amma on this side and an amma on that side. It is found to be 26 by 26 amos. The space where the feet of the Kohanim walk measured an amma on this side and an amma on that side. It is found to be 24 by 24 amos, and this is the space for the pyre. Rabbi Yossi says originally the altar was only 28 by 28 amos. It is narrowed and ascended in the same manner until it's found that the space for the pyre measured only 20 by 20 amos. But when the exiles ascended, they added to the altar 4 amos to the south and 4 amos on the north, on the west, in the shape of a gamma. This, as it is stated, and the hearth area is 12 amos long by 12 amos wide. It may be thought that the space for the pyre was only 12 by 12, when the verse states has four quadrants. It teaches that it is from the center point to the altar, and that the verse is measuring 12 damas in each direction. And a line of red encircled the altar at the halfway point of its height to separate between the upper bloods and the lower bloods. And the base traversed the entire north side and the entire west side of the altar and consumes one amma in the south and one amma in the east. And in the southwest corner, there were two holes like two fine nostrils, so that sacrificial bloods which were placed on the western base, on the southern base, would drain through them and mix together in the stream, and the blood encircled, enriched water would flow to the Kidron Valley. Below, on the floor of the corner, was a hollow place that measured one amma by one amma, and on its top, hollow, there was a marble tile with a ring affixed in it, and through it, they would descend to the shish to clean it. And there was a ramp to the south of the altar, which measured 32 amas by a width of 16 amas, and the ramp had an alcove built into its west side that they would place the unfit bird katas offerings. Is that ring the same ring that they used at the
No,
they
no, that was in the sleeping chamber you're thinking of, where they kept the keys underneath it.
right? I was thinking the other ring where they couldn't go. That was the only way they could go out through that one. Remember what's her name? She said something against them, and they prohibited that group
Oh,
from going
Bilga.
out.
The thing about
Yeah, yeah,
Bilga,
right.
that was at the end of Sukkah, the last Mishnah in Sukkah.
That's not this. It's a different ring then.
That's a ring. That was one of the rings in the north of the Mizbeach that they used for shechting the animals.
Okay. We have Baba Matzia. A person may stipulate for himself or for his son and daughter who are of age, for his male slave and female slave who are of age, and is for his wife because they have understanding. But he may not stipulate for his son and daughter who are minors, nor for his male slave, female slave who are minors, or for an animal, since they have no understanding. If one hires laborers to work in his revive plantings, they may not eat. If he did not notify them, he must redeem the fruit and give them to eat. If his fig cake separated or his cake cast open, this they may not eat. But if he did not notify them, he must hide the fruit and give it to them to eat. Shomer and produce may eat by virtue of common custom, but not by virtue of biblical law. There are four types of shomer: an unpaid shomer, a borrower, a paid shomer, and a renter. An unpaid shomer swears for everything, a borrower pays for everything, a paid shomer and a renter swear concerning an animal that broke a limb, an animal that was captured, an animal that died, and they pay for their loss and theft. Okay,
Okay.
good. Okay, thank you. Do you want to do the same thing tomorrow? Do you want to go back to the sugar house or
I may do that. Yeah, I think
okay,
tomorrow's
just let me know.